I'm never going to say that Daddy Day Camp is the best film I've ever seen, but I still was quite surprised to see how negative the ratings are and how poorly this has been received. Certainly based on Metacritic and IMDb stats, 3.2 out of 10 on IMDb across 16,000 reviews, a Metascore of 13. That's not exactly positive. And I believe it's in the bottom 100 films, but unfortunately IMDb has changed their layout and it's absolutely disgusting, and I can't find this information very easily at the moment. This was released in 2007, directed by Fred Savage, and stars Cuba Gooding Jr. and Lochlyn Munro, Richard Grant. And I think it's alright. Judging it as a sequel, absolutely not up to the same league as Daddy Daycare. The quality is not as good. It is not as funny. But as a film on its own, it's alright as a family film. I do think it's more of a children's film in terms of the style of humour and the intricacy of the narrative. It's not overly complicated. I think it's definitely something children will enjoy rather than families as a whole. But there are still certainly aspects of it that I, as a 29-year-old, thought were pretty interesting. I'll read the description from IMDb. And this says, seeking to offer his son the satisfying summer camp experience that eluded him as a child, the operator of a neighbourhood daycare centre opens his own camp only to face financial hardship and stiff competition from a rival camp. So, the daycare already exists, and now the residents of this daycare, that's not the right word, the pupils at the daycare are now going to enjoy a summer camp experience, and we're basically facing a lot of the same problems as they had in the daycare, but in a camp-based setting. Now, I'll be honest, I've never been that bothered about films set in summer camp. Maybe that's because I'm British and we don't really do the whole summer camp thing. It's not something that we have. I realise it's a massive thing in the States, but here it's not. But for me, what made it kind of interesting was the characters. The children all have kind of different personalities. There are some children who really just irritated me, and some that I actually really enjoyed. All very good actors. You know, I think the child actors in this are really good. Absolutely no complaints there. The narrative develops at a pretty reasonable pace. You know, it gets to the point quite quickly. It doesn't take too long setting up, because it doesn't need to. So the development of the narrative I actually thought worked pretty well. The casting is really good. The style of comedy, as I said, is definitely more for a younger audience, if I'm comparing this to Daddy Daycare. You know, Daddy Daycare, I feel like, has a much more universal style of comedy, whereas this one, it's a little bit more juvenile, but not to the extent where it's not something an older audience will enjoy. I liked it. I wouldn't give it 10 out of 10. I'd probably 5.5 out of 10, which for me is quite a low rating. I'm usually really... it's rare that I give anything less than a 6, because I can usually find at least something in it that I thought was brilliant. There's nothing in this that I would say is brilliant, but pretty much all of it I would say is really good. They made a lot of the right decisions. I'd say give it a watch. Certainly if you like Daddy Daycare or you like this kind of film, it's only an hour and a half. You know, give it a go. If you enjoy it, fantastic. If you don't, well, at least you've been able to form a solid opinion of your own. I do think the ratings are a lot lower than this film deserves. It's not the worst film I've ever seen by any stretch. I wouldn't watch it again, but I don't regret the time watching it.